They told me I had no space, that their new dream home, which I'd wired them Arthur's entire $180,000 life insurance for, suddenly had no room for me. My son, Thomas, and his wife Chloe stood there, carefully composed, telling me to leave. What they didn't know was that the dream home was about to become their worst nightmare. Because I still held the deed, they told me I had no space. I remember the fresh scent of sawdust and new paint still lingering in the air. My 2 worn suitcases sat by the front door, a stark contrast to the gleaming minimalist hall. Beside them, carefully propped against one, was a single faded photo of Arthur, his smile etched in time. I'd arrived with a hope that felt as fragile as spun glass, a quiet longing for connection after his passing. The day before, I had stood at the bank, my hand steady as I wired Thomas $180,000. It was the full payout from Arthur's life insurance, every cent. "It's your future," I'd told him on the phone, my voice thick with a mother's conviction. "It's our family's stability." He and Chloe, his new wife, Chloe had greeted me at the threshold with a hug that felt practiced, almost too eager, like something out of a Hallmark movie. "We'll never forget this, Eleanor," she'd chirped, her eyes bright, but quickly darting past me to my suitcases. "You'll always have a home with us." Thomas, my son, had offered a quick kiss to my cheek, already distracted by the boxes still unpacked in the living room. "You'll never need to lift a finger again, Mum." The words hung in the air, a promise that felt hollow even then. Their house was a study in modern sterility, white walls that echoed, grey floors that seemed to absorb all warmth, and a kitchen that looked like it had never known the honest chaos of a burnt pan. My room was downstairs, a designated guest suite. It lacked a closet, offered only a twin bed, and a half bath with no shower. Still, I didn't complain. I found a small comfort in the rhythmic hum of their daily lives, the faint sounds of movement upstairs. It was a new kind of quiet, but at least it wasn't the silence of true solitude. Thomas even made me coffee the first few mornings, a fleeting ritual that soon faded. Chloe, with a sigh that could curdle milk, taught me how to use their Wi-Fi thermostat, her patience visibly thin each time I fumbled with the sleek screen. We had dinner together once, a single time, the 3 of us around a table that always felt too large, too empty. By the second week, the air began to shift. The casual kindness thinned, replaced by a subtle, creeping discomfort. I started hearing things, not direct words, but whispers of passive aggression. Over the phone, Chloe would joke to her friends about living with 2 kids and a grandma, her laughter brittle. Thomas, when I asked if I could put up a small shelf in the laundry room, didn't answer. He just let out a long, theatrical groan that spoke volumes. Then came the small, deliberate changes, little pinpricks designed to make me feel less welcome, less a part of their home. The upstairs fridge, where I'd sometimes kept my fresh berries, suddenly sported a padlock. "Meal prepping," Chloe explained, her gaze unblinking. A few days later, Thomas moved the modem to his upstairs office without a word. My Netflix, my small evening escape, stopped working for 3 days. I sat on my twin bed, fiddling with the remote, the screen stubbornly blank, a knot tightening in my stomach. One evening, as I walked toward the kitchen, the low murmur of their voices drifted around the corner. I slowed, my hand resting on the cool, impersonal wallpaper I'd helped them pick out just 6 days prior. Thomas's voice, low and urgent, cut through the quiet. "She won't leave if we keep being nice. We've got to push her out without a fight." A cold wave washed over me, numbing my hands. Then Chloe's reply, sharper, colder. "She won't sign her share over unless she feels unwanted. Make it uncomfortable. She'll leave herself." I stood there, frozen, staring at the wallpaper I'd helped pick out. My son, my only son, scheming to force me out for a nursery, for more space, for their convenience. The wound was not new. It was merely reopening, deeper than before. My past sacrifices, The years poured into his life now felt like ash. That evening, I cooked chicken Alfredo, Thomas's favorite, the creamy scent filling the cold, modern kitchen. Neither of them came to the table. Chloe mumbled something about already eating. Thomas stayed upstairs, muttering about work. I sat alone, the steam rising from my plate, and ate slowly. Every bite was a memory of raising him. Soccer games, lost teeth, emergency room trips, endless hours with SAT tutors. Every birthday card he'd ever drawn, carefully tucked into a shoebox, was still in my suitcase, a relic of a love he now seemed to disregard. I was an obstacle, a calculation in their grand plan. The next morning, the confrontation arrived with the quiet precision of a surgeon's blade. I was at the sink, washing a handful of bright red strawberries, the mundane domesticity a stark contrast to the storm brewing. Chloe walked in, her arms folded across her chest, her face carefully blank, devoid of any warmth. "Eleanor," she began, her voice carefully measured, "we think it's time you looked for something more permanent, just your own space, for your comfort." Her words were soft, yet they carried the weight of an eviction notice. Thomas entered a moment later, sipping coffee, his eyes avoiding mine, as if nothing out of the ordinary was happening. "We don't have space for you anymore, Mum," he said, his voice flat, devoid of emotion. "You need to go, just like that." I wiped my hands on a dish towel, the rough cotton abrasive against my skin. I turned to face them both, my own face carefully composed, a smile, not wide, not fake, just still, touching my lips. "Okay?" I said, my voice steady, surprising even myself. "I'll be out by tonight." Chloe blinked, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. Thomas merely nodded, like he'd just completed a tedious work task. "Thanks, Mom," he said, already turning away, dismissing me. They thought they had won. They believed I was a quiet woman, easily managed, who would simply fade into the night. I went to my room. My hands moved with a methodical precision I hadn't known I possessed. I packed everything I had. My few clothes, Arthur's photo, a paperback I never finished. And at the very bottom of my suitcase, buried beneath sweaters and worn socks, lay the red folder, the house deed. My name sat there, clear and undeniable, next to Thomas's, 49% co-owner. I didn't say goodbye. I simply ordered a cab and walked out, leaving the modern, sterile house without a backward glance. But I knew something they didn't. That house, their dream, was now their ticking time bomb, and I had just lit the fuse. The cab ride to the extended stay motel was silent, the hum of the engine the only sound. I sat in the back seat, clutching that red folder, its corners pressing into my palm like a brand. It felt like a newborn baby, fragile yet powerful. I'd booked the room a week earlier, a premonition, a quiet whisper that had urged me to be ready. The motel was clean but sad, its faded carpet and flickering lamp mirroring the exhaustion settling in my bones. I paid cash for 3 nights. I declined housekeeping. I didn't want anyone seeing what little I had. That night, I lay on the stiff bed, the TV on mute, the deed resting on my chest like a shield. I wasn't mad. I wasn't even surprised. I was just done, and the true reckoning was about to begin. The silence in the motel room hummed with a different kind of power. I lay on the stiff bed, the television muted, the red folder with the deed clutched against my chest like a shield. The room smelled faintly of old cleaning solution and stale fried food. I wasn't mad. I wasn't even surprised. Only a quiet, cold certainty settled deep in my bones. I was simply done. They had taken my dignity, my presumed home, my voice. Now it was my turn to reclaim what was mine. The next morning, the motel's business center became my first battleground. I fed the deed into the printer, watching the copies slide out, crisp and new. 5 sheets. 1 for me, 1 for a lawyer if it ever came to that, 3 just in case anyone doubted my reach. I needed proof. I needed tangible evidence of the unseen power I still held. I was halfway through a bland diner coffee, its warmth a small comfort, when the unknown number flashed on my phone. My thumb hovered, a flicker of hesitation, but something urged me to answer. Ms. Carter, a man's voice, polite, professional. My name's Brad, Carolina Private Lending. You're listed as a co-owner of 124 Grayson Park Drive. My heart paused, then resumed with a slow, deliberate beat. Yes, I said cautiously. Is there a problem? Brad cleared his throat, a small, nervous sound. There's been a default. Your son, Mr. Thomas Carter, took out a $95,000 business loan using the house as collateral. Payments haven't been made in months. He's in breach. Foreclosure proceedings begin Friday. The words hit, sharp and precise. Thomas, a secret loan. Chloe's knowing silence, or perhaps a dangerous ignorance. Both options made my stomach twist. Brad was firm. I could stop it, pay it off, or release my claim. I asked for the paperwork. It arrived swiftly. I printed it, then took out the same blue pen I'd used to sign Thomas's first school permission slip decades ago. My hand, surprisingly steady, wrote my name, slowly, deliberately, across every required line. I scanned and sent it back. Brad called within the hour. Foreclosure will move forward. He confirmed. Thank you, Miss Carter. I said nothing, hung up, and turned off my phone. Thomas was about to learn what it felt like to be left without warning. A quiet storm was brewing, and I was holding the lightning. Have you ever felt that quiet shift, when resignation turns into an unexpected resolve? The silence was my sharpest weapon. I didn't tell anyone, not a soul. I didn't post a single word online. I didn't cry. I didn't reach for the phone to call my sister or join the chatter of my church group. I just sat in that motel room, listening to the profound stillness around me, a stillness I hadn't truly known in years. For too long, my life had been filled with the noise of their expectations, their demands, their carefully veiled slights. For too long, I had been denied the quiet dignity of my own space, my own voice. Now, in this humble room, I finally had it. That afternoon, I walked the 2 blocks to a tiny grocery store. The fluorescent lights hummed, harsh against my eyes. I picked up peanut butter crackers, a jar of instant coffee, and a small bottle of cheap wine. Simple things, but they felt like a celebration. That night, I sat on the edge of the stiff motel bed, the TV on mute, and poured a small glass. I lifted it, not for revenge, not for victory, but for myself. For finally realizing I was never going to be treated like family again, not in the way that truly mattered. So I might as well start treating myself like a person who mattered. My self-worth, a quiet ember I'd nurtured for decades, finally began to glow with a steady, certain warmth. At precisely 8 a.m. the next morning, my phone vibrated. A message from Thomas. Did you cancel something with the house? We just got a weird letter from a lender. I read it. I set the phone down. I didn't answer. 3 hours later, another text arrived. There's a notice on the door. Call me. Still, I said nothing. The screen remained dark. At 3:17 p.m., Chloe's name flashed across the screen. Eleanor, please. We're confused. Just tell us what's going on. My fingers tightened around the phone. I didn't want to be cruel, but I had to stay sane. If I heard one more fake plea, one more manufactured confusion from the woman who had meticulously tried to erase me, I might forget that silence, sometimes, is the sharpest weapon of all. So I turned the phone off. The room plunged back into its blessed quiet. The foreclosure notice hit faster than even Brad had predicted. Less than 48 hours after I sent the signed release, a bright orange letter was taped to the front door of 124 Grayson Park Drive. I didn't see it myself, of course. I didn't have to. The panic, sharp and public, erupted on social media. Chloe posted a frantic message in the neighborhood Facebook group. Urgent! Our home is being targeted by a scam. Please share resources if you know foreclosure attorneys. The sheer irony of it all made me laugh for the first time in days, a dry, bitter sound in the quiet motel room. I sat there, sipping motel-brewed coffee from a flimsy paper cup, scrolling quietly through her public meltdown. The comments poured in, a digital flood of concern and confusion. Old co-workers, neighbors, even Thomas's college friend, Darren. What happened? Can we help? I thought you guys were doing so well. Chloe responded to each one like a desperate politician, never quite answering anything directly, just spinning it into vague hardship. We're being betrayed by someone we trusted, she wrote, her words dripping with false vulnerability. Someone who should have protected us. That was when the comedy shifted to something darker, something insidious. Within hours, my own phone started buzzing again, with messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years. My cousin Sharon, a woman from my old church, Arthur's sister. All of them asking the same thing. Eleanor, what's going on? Chloe had framed it. She had painted me as the villain, the betrayer. She hadn't mentioned the $180,000 I'd wired, or the cruel whispers, or the way they'd forced me out, or the secret loan Thomas had taken behind my back. She simply played the victim, weaving a narrative designed to turn my world against me. And Thomas, my son, he doubled down. He posted an old photo of us, me and him when he was 5, eating ice cream in a parking lot, his face smeared with chocolate, and captioned it, "It's hard when the people who raised you end up turning on you." No names, no tags, just pure manipulation. But I knew who it was for. The relatives, the mutuals, the people on the edges of the story who'd fill in the blanks with their own guilt, shame, and assumptions. I was being erased in real time, my very essence, my story, rewritten for public consumption. And I knew this was only the beginning of their public performance, a performance that would soon demand an audience. But what kind of silence would I choose next? What hidden truth would their public lies reveal? They wanted a fight. I gave them silence. I thought about defending myself. My fingers hovered over my phone, itching to post the deed. The undeniable proof of Thomas's secret loan. The cruel texts from Chloe. I could expose their lies, dismantle their carefully crafted narrative piece by piece, let the truth explode across their polished social media feeds. But then, a memory, soft as dust, settled over me. My father's voice, clear as if he were still standing beside me. "Don't fight people rolling in the mud, Eleanor. You'll only get dirty and they'll enjoy it." His words, once a simple piece of advice, now felt like a profound warning, a compass in the murky waters of betrayal. So I stayed silent. I would not roll in their mud. The motel room, with its faded carpet and flickering lamp, remained my sanctuary. I listened to the quiet hum of the mini-fridge, the distant sounds of traffic, and waited for the inevitable. It came a few hours later, a phone call from an unknown number. My heart skipped a beat, then resumed its steady rhythm. It was the sheriff's department. A polite man named Officer Reeves. "Ms. Carter," he said, his voice calm, professional. "This is just a courtesy call. There will be a formal lockout scheduled at the Grayson Park address this Friday at 10:00 a.m. You're not required to be present since you've already signed off, but we wanted to notify you as a listed party." I thanked him, my voice steady, betraying no emotion. I didn't ask for details. I didn't need to. The knowledge hung in the air, cold and definitive. That night, sleep evaded me. I lay awake, staring at the muted television screen, picturing it all. Thomas stumbling to the door in sweatpants, his face a mask of disbelief. Chloe, tears streaming down her face, clutching a box of belongings on the porch, their carefully curated life spilling out onto the manicured lawn, reduced to garbage bags. And still, no satisfaction bloomed within me. Only a profound stillness, a quiet acceptance. They had chosen this, every step of it. Friday arrived. I stayed in my room, the thin motel curtains drawn against the morning light. I made oatmeal in the microwave, the familiar warmth, a small comfort against the chill in the air. I waited. At 10:42 a.m., my phone buzzed. No caller ID, voicemail only. I listened once, the sharp, raw edge of Thomas's fury cutting through the crackle. Then again, to absorb every word. "I don't know what you did." His voice was low, laced with venom. "But we're out. Gone. You ruined us, Mom. I hope you're happy." That was it. No apology, no shred of regret. Just blame. As if I had tripped a wire they themselves had planted. At noon, Chloe's message followed. Longer, more desperate. "Eleanor, if you wanted to hurt us, congrats. We're being evicted. I just hope you sleep well tonight. You've destroyed your family." That word, destroyed, clung to me all day, heavy and suffocating, as if it wasn't their family too, as if I had no right to walk away from people who had used me, discarded me like a broken tool. I turned off the phone, silencing the accusations, cutting off the last thread of their noise. I walked to the corner store, the crisp air a welcome shock against my face. I bought a small, spiral-bound notebook. Inside the motel room, I sat down on the bed, flipped to the first page, and with a pen that felt surprisingly heavy in my hand, I wrote a single, indelible sentence. Today they lost everything. And in that act, in that quiet, deliberate declaration, I found my own silence. A powerful, unyielding silence. A silence that spoke volumes to myself. A promise of a future where my story would finally be my own. What unspoken truths do we hold inside, waiting for the right moment to claim them? They didn't stay quiet for long. 2 days after the lockout, the silence I had cultivated was shattered, not by shouts, but by the relentless hum of public outrage. Chloe had unleashed her version of the story on Instagram, a meticulously crafted narrative spread across 10 pastel-colored slides, all titled, "When Family Betrays You." Each frame detailed a version of the truth, twisted and polished. They had opened their home out of love, taken in a grieving elderly parent, only to be blindsided by legal trickery and manipulation. She outright called it elder abuse. The comments poured in, a torrent of digital sympathy. Dozens of strangers, none of whom knew me, piled on. Some people just want to control their kids forever. This is why boundaries matter. You're so strong, Chloe. Sending love. Each word was a tiny needle, pricking at the edges of my resolve. I scrolled, my thumb moving slowly, methodically. Then I saw Thomas's comment, cold and unwavering, beneath one of Chloe's most dramatic posts. "You did everything right. You protected our future. She chose destruction." I stared at that one for a long time, not because it hurt, not anymore, but because I couldn't believe he could lie so easily, so publicly. There was a time he would have cried if I so much as scolded him for breaking a plate. Now, he was painting me as a monster to strangers on the internet, orchestrating a public narrative of my demise. The loss aversion was clear. They had lost the house, but they were trying to salvage their image, their social standing, at the cost of my reputation. This wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about erasing my good name, my very history. I was being erased in real time, my true self replaced by their fabricated villain. I thought about defending myself. My fingers twitched, imagining the clear, undeniable proof I held. The deed, the wire receipt for $180,000, the foreclosure confirmation from Carolina Private Lending, the screenshots of Chloe's chilling text. Once she's gone, we can finally plan the nursery. I could expose them, pull back the curtain on their performance. But then, a quiet whisper, an old echo, settled in my mind. My father's voice. "Don't fight people rolling in the mud, Eleanor. You'll only get dirty, and they'll enjoy it." His words were a shield, a silent reminder that my dignity was not found in their public arena. So I stayed silent. I didn't respond, but it wasn't over. Not even close. Within hours, the public outrage had rippled through my own small world. My phone started buzzing, a constant tremor of incoming messages. Texts from people I hadn't spoken to in years. My cousin Sharon, a woman from my old church group, Arthur's sister. All of them asking the same thing. Eleanor, what's going on? Chloe's narrative had spread, turning distant acquaintances into unwitting participants in their smear campaign. She had successfully framed it. I was the one who betrayed them, who had somehow sabotaged their home out of bitterness. They didn't know about the money I gave, or the cruel whispers, or the way they had forced me out, or the secret loan Thomas took behind my back. She simply played the victim. Then came the knock, soft at first, then a little firmer. I hadn't ordered anything. I didn't move right away. I'd lived long enough to know hesitation is sometimes protection. After a second knock, I opened the door just an inch. Standing there was a woman in her mid-50s, vaguely familiar. Her face was kind, her eyes serious. "Eleanor Carter?" she asked, her voice gentle. "You probably don't remember me. I'm Doreen. I work with the City Housing Board. I saw some posts. I just wanted to hear your side." My eyes blinked. A stranger reaching out. It was the first act of unexpected kindness I'd felt in weeks. A tiny crack in the wall of their manufactured reality. Did she truly want to know? Or was this another subtle trap? Her face was kind, but my guard remained. We sat in the motel lobby. The stale air hung heavy, punctuated by the faint hum of the vending machine and the distant murmur of traffic. Doreen, the woman from the City Housing Board, pushed a lukewarm coffee cup across the table. Her eyes, I realized, were genuinely empathetic, a quiet compassion that chipped away at my carefully constructed wall. "Eleanor Carter," she said, her voice soft but steady. "You probably don't remember me. I work with the city. I saw some posts, and I wanted to hear your side." I blinked, taking a slow sip of the bitter coffee. This wasn't the aggressive confrontation I'd braced for. This was a direct, human invitation. My mind raced, weighing the risk. Was this a subtle trap? Another angle for their narrative? Or was it the first outstretched hand I'd encountered in weeks? A glimmer of genuine concern amidst the manufactured chaos? I looked at her, at the small, earnest lines around her eyes, and a different kind of silence settled between us. The silence of contemplation, not fear. "I'm not press," Doreen said, as if reading my thoughts. "I'm just tired of good people getting smeared by influencers with matching throw pillows." That last line, so specific, so cutting, broke something loose inside me. It showed she understood the calculated cruelty of Chloe's performance, and so I began to speak. I walked her through everything, not with anger, but with a quiet, devastating honesty. Every dollar I'd wired to Thomas, the full $180,000 from Arthur's life insurance, every dinner I'd cooked, every towel I'd folded in their sterile home, the casual insults I'd swallowed, the subtle ways they'd made me feel like an unwelcome guest in a house I'd helped buy. I described overhearing their plan, the chilling words. "She won't sign her share over unless she feels unwanted. Make it uncomfortable. She'll leave herself." I recounted the direct demand to leave, the no space for you, that cut deeper than any physical blow. Doreen didn't take notes. She just listened, her gaze steady, occasionally nodding, a quiet understanding dawning in her eyes. It was a strange, vulnerable feeling, recounting such raw pain to a stranger. Yet, with each word, a fraction of the heavy burden I'd been carrying seemed to lift. It was an unspoken empathy, a recognition that validated my truth far more than any argument I could have posted online. When I finished, the hum of the vending machine seemed louder, the quiet in the lobby more profound. Doreen reached across the table, sliding a small business card toward me. "If you need help finding permanent housing, Eleanor," she said, her voice firm, "let me have a look. I have strings I can pull." It was the first unsolicited kindness, the first genuine offer of support I'd felt in weeks. Not pity, but practical, tangible help. That night, back in my room, I opened my email. A new message sat in my inbox. The subject line read, "Request for interview, Charlotte Local Magazine." My finger hovered over it. I closed the laptop without reading the rest. I wasn't ready to tell my story on their terms. Not yet. But I did forward it to myself, changing the subject line to a simple internal reminder. Hold on to this. A seed of a different kind of action was being planted. The public pressure, however, wasn't letting up. That week, Chloe doubled down on her social media campaign. She posted a TikTok video. It showed her standing in front of a U-Haul, mascara visibly running down her cheeks, a baby bump dramatically prominent, holding a cardboard sign that screamed, "Evicted by my mother-in-law." It exploded online, gaining nearly 80,000 views in just 2 days. People in the comments were tagging news stations, offering to start GoFundMe campaigns. The collective moral outrage, fueled by her manipulative performance, was aimed squarely at me. And then, the final straw. My old church pastor texted me, "Eleanor, what is going on? Can I call you?" It wasn't just strangers or distant relatives anymore. It was my community, people who knew me, whose good opinion I valued. Their questions, fueled by Chloe's carefully crafted lies, pierced through my resolve to remain completely silent. The quiet rebellion was no longer enough. I pulled up the deed, the definitive proof. I pulled up the bank statement showing my transfer of $180,000. I pulled up the email from Brad, confirming the foreclosure. I took screenshots of Chloe's chilling text. "Once she's gone, we can finally plan the nursery." Then, with a cold, steady hand, I sent it all to the pastor, to my cousins, to the church ladies' group chat. I didn't add a single word of commentary, just proof. 5 minutes later, my niece replied, her message terse. "Oh, so she lied to everyone." Then, a profound silence. No one defended Chloe. No one offered excuses. I knew they saw it. I knew the thread had broken. Later that night, Thomas's name appeared on my phone. "Please call me. Just talk to me." 10 minutes later, another message. "I know things got bad, but you're still my mom." I didn't reply. Not because I hated him, but because some bridges don't burn all at once. Some crumble piece by piece, every time someone you love decides you're disposable. I stared at the phone for a long time before locking it and sliding it into the drawer. Then I lay down on the motel bed and whispered into the silence, "Still your mum." But no, fool. And for the first time in weeks, I slept 8 hours without waking once. The clarity of truth, once hidden, had begun its quiet ripple, and the path forward was becoming shockingly clear. Have you ever felt the incredible power that comes from finally speaking your truth, even if it's not to the world, but just to those who truly matter? It started with a bouquet of white lilies. They sat outside my motel door in a cheap glass vase, the kind Thomas used to bring home from the grocery store when he was a teenager, trying to apologize for denting the car or flunking a quiz. A note was tucked among the stems. "Let's talk, please." No name, just that. I didn't touch them. I didn't bring them in. I left them there overnight. By morning, they had started to wilt, their edges browning. The front desk clerk asked if I wanted them tossed. I said yes. That afternoon, Thomas showed up in person. No warning. A sharp rap on the door around 2 p.m. "Mum? It's me. Can we talk?" I stared at him through the peephole for a long minute. He looked tired, pale, like someone who hadn't been sleeping, just like me. Against my better judgment, a flicker of that old maternal instinct, I cracked the door open. 5 minutes, I said. He nodded, like a child being given a second chance. We sat on opposite ends of the little round table by the window. I watched him try to figure out what version of himself to be. Finally, he settled on quiet and sad. "I messed up," he said, his voice low. "I know that I should have told you about the loan. I shouldn't have let Chloe talk to you like that. I panicked. I said nothing, just waited. She's pregnant," he added, as if that explained everything. We were scared. For a split second, I saw the boy who used to cry when I left for night shifts. But he wasn't that boy anymore. He was a man who had thrown me out of my own investment and painted me as the villain online. "I didn't come to argue," he said, shifting in his seat. "I was wondering if you'd be willing to sign a document. Nothing big, just something to help us negotiate with the lender to get back on track." That was the moment my gut screamed. He hadn't come for peace. He came because he still thought I was a lever he could pull when things got desperate. "Show me," I said. He hesitated, then pulled a manila folder from under his arm and handed me the paper. I read it once, then again. It wasn't just a consent form. It was a partial power of attorney, cleverly disguised in legal jargon, that would give him limited access to manage the foreclosure proceedings. Access that could, subtly, lead to my bank accounts, my retirement fund. I set the paper down. "Get out," I said. He blinked. "Mum?" "Out." I stood slowly. He stood too, like he thought he could salvage the moment with one more line. "We're going to lose the baby's future, Mom." I looked him dead in the eye, my voice flat. "You already did." He left without another word. I locked the door behind him and stood there until my hands stopped shaking. It wasn't fear. It was the adrenaline of a boundary held firm. Then I called the motel front desk and asked to be moved to a new room. Different floor, different hallway. They didn't ask why. I packed everything in 15 minutes and changed rooms before dinner. I blocked Thomas's number that night. Not because I was angry, but because I had to protect myself from the part of me that still wanted to believe he meant it when he said he messed up. Have you ever had to cut ties, not out of hate, but to protect the quiet sanctuary of your own peace? The new room was identical, yet it felt like a fortress. I moved my few belongings myself. Each trip down the hallway a quiet declaration of independence. The new room mirrored the old, same faded carpet, same generic art on the walls. But here, the air felt different, cleaner. My phone stayed off, a silent brick in my bag. I wasn't running. I was retreating, consolidating my strength. I had drawn a line, and now I was settling into the quiet aftermath. That evening, I finally opened my laptop. Chloe's email was waiting. No emojis, no hashtags, just a short, raw message that read, "I don't know what we're supposed to do now. We have nothing. I know you hate me, but think of the baby." I stared at the screen, feeling the heat of those words press against my ribs. The desperation was real, but so was the manipulation. Think of the baby. The ultimate leverage. I closed the laptop without replying, made myself a cup of peppermint tea, and watched the motel parking lot lights flicker against the darkening sky. Not yet. My response wasn't a reply. It was a reckoning, still building. 3 days passed, a stretch of peaceful, undisturbed routine. Then, at 7:42 p.m. on a Sunday, a soft rap on my motel door. My heart hitched. I was in pajama pants, halfway through a cup of tea, when I looked through the peephole. It was Chloe. Her hair was messier than usual, her face drawn. But she held a bundled-up infant in a soft pink blanket, a diaper bag slung over her shoulder like a peace offering. My breath caught. I didn't open the door right away. "Eleanor," she called softly, her voice thin. "I'm not here to fight. We don't know what to do anymore. Thomas is falling apart. We got kicked out of the rental we found. They said we failed a credit check. Please, can I come in?" I cracked the door 2 inches. Her makeup was smudged, her eyes red, swollen. The baby, a girl, stirred slightly and let out a soft, fussy squeak. Chloe rocked her gently. "Her name's Lily," she whispered, her voice cracking. "She's yours too. Don't shut us out." That hit harder than I expected. I hadn't known the baby's name. I hadn't wanted to. But here she was. A tiny, innocent life. Weaponized. A deep, agonizing pull. I opened the door and let her in. She stepped inside slowly, like a guest unsure of the rules, glancing around the tiny room. "You still like it cold in here, huh?" she offered, a tired smile. I didn't respond. She sat down carefully on the edge of the motel bed, bouncing Lily gently. "We really screwed up," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I said things I didn't mean. We were stressed, scared. I nodded. Not because I forgave her, but because I needed her to keep talking, to show her hand. Thomas is too proud to admit it, she went on, her gaze fixed on the baby. But he's drowning. We both are. Our bank accounts are frozen. We owe over 10 grand in late fees and penalties. Our phones are on borrowed time, and I don't know where we go from here. I watched her lower lip quiver, watched her blink too fast when she talked about how lonely it felt to be in a world that had moved on without them. My empathy was a flickering candle, constantly tested by the calculating glint in her eyes. Then I saw it. A brand tag, still hanging from the diaper bag. I leaned closer. The logo. Posh Baby. A designer line. Over $900. That's new, I said, pointing. My voice was calm, steady. Chloe hesitated. It was a gift, she said too quickly. From a friend. I said nothing, just stood slowly and walked to the window. From there, I could see a rental car idling by the curb, a black SUV. Not cheap, not broken down, not desperate. My suspicions hardened into certainty. You came here to get something, I said. She flinched. I came here to ask for help, she countered. No, I corrected, turning fast to face her. You came here to film something. Where is it? Her lips parted, then closed. She stood up, clutching Lily tighter. What are you talking about? Your phone? Your purse? Whatever it is? I saw it in the bag's side pocket when you sat down. You're recording this. Her lips parted again, then closed, defeated. We just wanted proof, she said quietly, in case you tried to twist things. I stared at her for what felt like a full minute, the air thick with unspoken truths. Get out, I said. My voice was low, laced with an authority that left no room for argument. Eleanor, now, open the door and take the gift shop baby bag with you. She didn't move. I stepped forward, closer than I'd ever been to her in anger, my gaze unblinking. Let me be clear, Chloe. I'm not your storyline. I'm not your villain. And I sure as DMN hell am not your ATM. Get out of my room before I call the police. She picked up Lily slowly, clutching her close, her face a mask of defeat. She's your granddaughter. No, I said, my voice cutting through her desperate plea. She's your child. Raise her better than you treat people. Chloe stepped out, her back stiff. She walked to the car and climbed in, and within seconds they drove off. I closed the door, locked it, and sat on the bed without moving for a long time. My hands were shaking again, but it wasn't fear. It was adrenaline, the quiet tremor of a battle won. Chloe had come to bait me into saying something cruel on camera, something they could cut, edit, post online, turn into sympathy clicks, and I hadn't given it to her. I had stayed calm, resolute, but I wasn't finished. There was still a final public truth to be told. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where silence, or the quiet act of holding your ground, became your most powerful form of communication? The heavy court seal felt like a final, undeniable truth. 2 days later, the thick envelope slid under my motel door. I made 5 copies of the restraining order. 1, unsigned, I mailed to Chloe and Thomas, with a sticky note. You wanted legal? You got it. That night, with new purpose, I replied to Charlotte Local magazine. I sent everything. Deed, $180,000 receipt, foreclosure proof, texts, Chloe's designer diaper bag photo. Subject, since they want to talk, let's talk. The editor called. We believe you. I agreed, on condition. Include my line, this is not revenge, this is clarity. The piece ran Sunday. When help becomes a weapon, one mother's account of financial betrayal. It rippled through Charlotte, sparking talk of entitlement. My name appeared, not as villain, but as someone quietly written back in. The true shift came Friday. I walked past a coffee shop. Inside, Thomas sat alone. Our eyes met. No flinch, no wave, just distance. A bond that no longer existed. I kept walking. I didn't cry. That night, his email. I read the article. I won't contact you again. I'm sorry you felt like you had no choice. I archived it. Next morning, Doreen's note. You've been approved. Keys awaiting. My new condo in Wilmington. Water view. Affordable. I stood, realizing I'd stopped checking over my shoulder. I was done apologizing for my existence. That evening, I updated my will. Thomas's name removed. Everything split between a domestic abuse shelter, a literacy program, and an animal rescue. One last email to my lawyer. If he ever challenges, release everything publicly. The final text came that weekend. Chloe. 4 words. We lost everything. Congrats. Read it. Deleted it. No reply. I packed, not running, but finally stopped. They said I had no space. I proved I never needed theirs. The condo was smaller but brighter. Sunlight poured in. I stepped inside, letting the silence hit me. My space. No shouting. No fake apologies. I made tea. Walked onto the balcony. No ocean view, but I heard it. Enough. My phone stayed silent. I just unpacked, filled my fridge. Wednesday, I walked the boardwalk. Nobody knew me. I chose a blue seashell from a painter. Good choice, she said, for people who've let go of something heavy. I named it Peace. Days, then weeks. A rhythm? Coffee? Walk? Journal? Art class. Walter, my instructor, told terrible jokes. You paint like someone who survived something, he said. I have. The past. A sealed drawer. Until the letter. Thomas's messy script. I know I can't undo what I did. I don't expect anything. I just want you to know I'm trying. We named her Eleanor Lily Carter. I read it, folded it, placed it with the voided deed. No cry, no smile, just the words. That evening, I walked to the beach, barefoot. Waves crashed. I thought of the girl named for me, the man who was my son. He was gone. Maybe someone better was born from his ruin. Not my burden. I walked home, curled up with a book. Just peace. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. No message. I let it fade, then whispered 5 words. No space here either. The world moved on, and so did I. What would you have done in Eleanor's place? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I love reading what you all think. And hey, if this story hit you, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss another journey of resilience.